Thank you. And thank you to the witnesses for being here today. I've sat in, and we've had a few of these meetings now, and a lot of the conversation has been very similar. And I want to return to something that my colleague touched on in our last meeting, and that's with respect to the constituency concerns that we have around the EV mandates, and especially as that translates out in rural areas. And one of the responses that we've commonly gotten is this notion that it's really just a result of myths or misinformation that's been spreading with respect to the EV mandates. And so my translation of that is that the government just hasn't convinced the Canadian public yet. And so I want to respond today with some of the realities of the rural communities that I represent. And I just want to start and say that just because these concerns or this information comes from around kitchen tables or the floors of dealerships in rural communities doesn't mean that it's misinformed or rural people's voices are just not well educated enough. So if you would just allow me to sort of give you some information about my riding, and then I'm going to allow you to respond. The riding that I represent is 47,000 square kilometers and extremely sparsely populated. So as an example, we have communities that have 150 people, 40 or 50 people. And the low density alone of my riding makes the rollout of charging infrastructure fundamentally different from an urban center. So we can't assume that the solutions for Toronto and Vancouver are going to translate well out into some of these more rural areas. Now, I just want to give you some context here. If you live in St. Anthony in Newfoundland and Labrador, you have to travel 470 kilometers to deliver your baby. Now, if something happens while you're in the hospital and, heaven forbid, that child has to go to a NICU, that's over 1,000 kilometers from this community. So these are some of the challenges that these people are facing. In addition to that, there's 3 communities in my riding, Grey River, Francois, Ramia. You can only get there by ferry. No charging infrastructure in any of these places. These are some of the really rural components that we're talking about. And I know we're often framing these conversations to say, you know, you don't need to buy an EV today. But practically speaking, whether that's 7 or 5 or 4 years down the road, whether it's a 20% or an 80%, it might as well be 100% given what these people are looking at right now. So my question is, especially as it relates to this myth-busting narrative, because another piece of this is we're asking these people to pay $15,000 to $20,000 more in upfront costs for a lot of these vehicles, which absolutely don't make any sense for the communities and the areas that they live in. I think that when we're having these conversations, I get extremely frustrated because I feel it's deeply dismissive of the lived experience of rural Canadians in some of these really rural and remote areas. And it's not just about educating them. It's about really understanding the dynamics. When you also look at these family-owned and operated repair shops, they don't have the upfront money to invest in new electrification within these areas or specialized technicians. So, you know, these seem like some pretty far-fetched concepts for people living in these rural communities. So I just kind of wanted to put it out there to either of you, actually, to sort of walk me through, based on the picture that I've just painted for you, what you feel is, how do I respond to my constituents who look at me and say, this makes absolutely no sense to me? Can you help me to overcome that barrier? Because, I mean, I guess, are we just going to give them some more information and debunk these challenges for them?
So I grew up in a rural community. My family is Mennonite. We are farmers. And I know that we drove very long distances to get to local towns and committees. The savings, I mean, the facts do matter. The savings when you drive long distances are even greater. Look at Lucid right now. They have a car 800 kilometers. The battery technology is improving every single day.
But if they live in a community that they can only get there by ferry, so are we telling them you're going to take that car, you're going to put it on the ferry, you're going to take it over, you're going to bring it to, I don't know, 400 or 500 kilometers, where you're going to charge it up there, you're going to drive it back,
There's also hybrid vehicles which are available, and that's also in the EVAS standard. So if it depends on your particular situation,
so we're
you may choose a hybrid vehicle to save
telling them
money.
What to drive in that case?
Well, it depends on if you want to do the math, right? So if you want to, I spend a ton of money on gas. We have a truck. It's expensive. If I want to save money, I'm buying an electric truck. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And over the last 10 years at least, it's been the national and provincial strategy to electrify Canada and the province of BC. I was an MLA there when I first found out about Clean BC's mandate to have electric cars mandated as a purchaser's option, is what they called it. But it wasn't really a purchaser's option because there was a penalty attached to it. 90% EVs in BC by 2030 and 100% of EVs by 2035. But the penalty was a $20,000 charge put on retailers that would then be passed on to consumers, which was very unaffordable. Even without the rebate, was very unaffordable for low-income earners. And as soon as the rebate started being questioned or being dropped, then people stopped purchasing EVs. So I've heard the argument from the witnesses saying that we should not walk away from the mandate of EVs. But do the witnesses, and I'll direct my question to Mr. Wiseman, do you think that the $20,000 penalty attached to EVs should remain as well?
I think it's to be clear, the EVAS is incredibly flexible in how those compliance components can be accommodated. If a manufacturer doesn't sell enough EVs, they can roll over year for up to 3 years to come into compliance. They can partner with electric charging companies to further install more charging, and they get credits for that. I believe they also get credits for hybrid vehicles as well. So that's many of the manufacturers right now. And I think the key point...
Mr. Wiseman, I've only got 6 minutes here. So
sure.
The specific question was, does the $20,000 penalty to retailers that gets passed on to consumers, should that remain as part of the mandate?
It doesn't work like that, though, to be clear. There's a lot of flexibilities, and then it's up to the OEMs to decide how they work with it. And I think the key point here, just on our health benefits, is there are today costs to Canadians as well related to inaction.
I understand that. But my question was specific because I asked the same question in BC, and basically their answer was yes, that penalty will remain. Why I'm asking is because BC just dropped their mandate. They said it wasn't realistic, and I'm sure everybody in this room, and in Canada for that matter, wants to see a cleaner future, but it's got to be realistic. And this is what the BC government's saying now, that it has to be realistic. And I like your comments in terms of choice and affordability, but it's not much of a choice if there's a markup in cost, either the retailer or the manufacturer, that gets passed on to the consumer. So with the rebates, the demand starts to go down. But in BC, we have a problem with production and supply of electricity. We're probably one of the greenest provinces in terms of providing electricity, mainly coming from dams, for instance. Site C is going to be producing 1,100 megawatts of electricity, and it's not enough for today's needs, let alone future needs. We've got a $6 billion Northwest transmission line being built in BC as well, from Prince George to Terrace, BC, and that's not enough for current demand, let alone future demand. On top of that, we're actually importing electricity from the United States, which questionably produces their electricity from natural gas and coal. So has your organization done any investigations into how we can increase the production and supply of clean electricity?
Oh, absolutely. Happy to come back on another study if you'd like to engage with that, and we'd be more than
That'd
happy
be
to
great.
come back.
Just give me
But
some.
absolutely, the line we always say at TAF is the cheapest kilowatt hour is the one you don't use, and so efficiency is the name of the game to begin with. Like that's step one. That's the cheapest thing you could start doing today is start with energy efficiency. From there, you start to go into deployment of alternative renewable resources. Solar can deploy incredibly quickly. Wind can deploy incredibly quickly. Battery electric and storage can help, especially with charging on off-peak or overnight hours. I know that the Hydro-Quebec is looking at getting a lot of its demand response from electric vehicles as well in off-peak, in peak shaving and off-peak times. And so electric vehicles shouldn't be viewed as just a drain on the system. They are an absolute resource.
I'm not talking about EVs. I'm talking about the production and supply, which we're actually deficient in right now in BC, and yet we have the most abundant clean energy. In fact, BC right now has put limits on electricity use in BC. We talk about a new economy.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
5 or 6 minutes?
5 minutes.
Oh, 5. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate your witnesses coming today. This is fascinating, fascinating subject. And I have so many different places I'd like to start. Ms. Sinsarak, could you comment about the electrical equipment? What is the back order right now on transformers?
There was a back order during the pandemic, but we have been scaling in order to meet that demand. And a lot of that is caused by data centers, not by EVs.
Thank you very much. So that implies then that demand overall is increasing because, I mean, the industry is growing into new markets.
Yeah, we're investing.
Data centers as well, right? So what is the typical delay in from order to delivery?
I don't think there's a significant delay right now. It's come down because of the new investments in Canada. And
so this is 125 and less, or what
and
about
this
substation?
This is also with the trade relationship with the U.S. We're now not able to export as many as we used to be able to. So there is actually we need demand here in Canada.
Okay, Mr. Wiseman, could you explain why is the EV adoption rate so low in some regions? Like, what is your understanding of that?
It varies. Incentives are a big part of it. Purchase incentives. I think one part is that especially if you look globally, year over year, the sales have continued to increase. Canada's been an outlier.
No, I mean specifically within Canada.
Yeah, specifically
right?
within Canada. I mean, I think partly the federal government announcing earlier this year that there was going to be an incentive, and that was about 6 months ago, and they haven't brought it back out, has depreciated
So there's
purchases.
no other features of the regions themselves that have different characteristics?
There are.
Why?
BC and Quebec, range anxiety isn't really as much of a factor as it is in other provinces. Because of
other
studies.
places, range anxiety is a factor?
Generally because they're still in deploying their infrastructure more, but it really goes to show when you have a plan, it really does manifest in deployment.
Could, let me see here. Ms. Sinsarak, your press release argues that the EV mandate provides industry certainty. Do you agree that it simultaneously provides consumer certainty by restricting their ability to purchase the vehicle that they would like to have?
Sorry, I said that it restricts their ability?
No, you said your press release argues the EV mandate provides industry certainty.
Yeah.
Do you agree that it simultaneously removes consumer certainty by restricting their ability to purchase the type of vehicle that they would like?
I don't agree with that, no. I think that you can continue. There's a lot of myths around. It's not a ban on internal combustion vehicles, and the presence of the 100% figure has been repeatedly mischaracterized as a consumer ban. But you can.
It is 100%, right? I mean, and it's not a question of choice and increasing choice. It's a mandate by design.
And I think
it'll be 100% is 100%.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why we're suggesting going down to 80% to keep the strength of EVAS, but ensuring that Canadians don't feel that it's a mandate. This has become a political lightning rod, and this isn't maybe an opportunity, but it's essential. It's essential that you keep the strength of EVAS.
Thank you. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Did you poll satisfaction results in rural areas? Like, could you break that out? Rural versus urban, lower mainland BC versus the GTA, the Golden Horseshoe?
The poll that I mentioned about that was for Quebec. That was linked to our campaign
Only
in Quebec.
Did it
Yes.
separate out rural versus urban?
I don't have the numbers,
Okay, thank you.
but it's 99%, so it wouldn't make a lot of difference.
You could argue as people that are already bought EVs that have already committed to that, and it doesn't
or
include
used.
any stretch of the balance of the population. All of the witnesses, I would like to follow the tact of my bloc colleague. Ms. Cicerak, you're fully funded by the electrical manufacturers industry,
We are a non-for-profit industry association.
but it's fully funded by the electrical manufacturers?
Yes, we represent
companies?
electrical and automation
thank you.
manufacturers and distributors.
Mr. Wiseman, could you supply the committee with your funding structure?
Yeah, absolutely.
Please, okay. Ms. Selbu, same? You provide this funding structure to the committee?
Sure.
Where your funding comes from? There is some question as to the funding of agenda dictating outcomes of belief. I had one final question, Mr. Wiseman, about your data on the health. Could you explain the change of inflection as the projected outcomes get worse and worse and worse? There's an inflection, and the benefits drop, and drop. Time is up.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Sorry about that.